Coming from New Zealand, being Samoan, a lot of it is humility, team before me. What we valued in New Zealand, Samoa, in the arena wasn't so valued here. When you're in unison with other human beings, there is nothing like that. And for me, I just hope everyone gets to experience that in their lifetime. That's my goal, feeling so connected to other people. I'm surrounded by brilliant women. They're doctors, they're lawyers. Like, I wouldn't tell on the rugby field because they're all covered in mud. But when you get to know them, you're like, wait, you studied what? I was asked by my USA coach to captain the Eagles. We were in the parking lot and I just cried. I cried because I wasn't sure I was good enough. I knew the team well enough. I wasn't sure that I was the right person for the job.
My name is Kyla Colvin. You're listening to my interview with Karameli Faaee, and this is the Hunger and Heart Podcast. Enjoy the show. Hello, my name is Kyla Colvin, and welcome to episode 29 of Hunger and Heart, a podcast on the intersection of wild ambition and fierce compassion. My guest today is Karameli Faaee. Karameli is a straight-up inspiration and one of the most successful international rugby players in U.S. history. As captain of the USA Women's Eagles, she led the team to fourth place in the 2017 Rugby World Cup, their first time making it to the semifinals in 20 years, and then captained the New York Rugby Club to the Women's Premier League Championship just a couple months later. Karameli then went into coaching and became the first ever women's coach of a U.S. professional men's rugby team, Rugby United New York. This year, she joined the coaching team at Brown University Women's Rugby, where the season is just heating up. They had an incredibly challenged start and have turned it around, winning their last two games decisively. In this conversation, we talk about the connection between emotions and performance, the difference between coaching men and women, and what happened when she had to face the Black Ferns haka. So, here you are, my conversation with Karameli Faaee. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Me too. I'll be honest, when I got your message, I mean, just everything with the Crusaders, the leadership, it's been being stateside now after obviously growing up in New Zealand was, something I was really proud of, that, an outfit from New Zealand is going around the world using rugby, especially as a vehicle, to create very conscious humans, moving around the world contextually. So when I saw your message pop up, I actually screenshotted it and sent it to my mate because she's going to help me with my LinkedIn account. And she made a joke. She goes, the fact that she even found you, even though you haven't put a lot of energy into your account, is crazy. So, and you're from New York City.
I am from New York City. Where in New York did you live?
Everywhere. I started with a couple of boys from Wellington up in Dykeman.
Okay.
And then we were following the rugby crew around, and then all the rugby people were in Brooklyn, so then I moved to Brooklyn.
Right.
And then I lived in Astoria, back uptown. So I was recently in the Lower East Side in Stuytown before I moved to Providence. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I was just talking about Stuytown. I did not realize that. Like, someone said, oh, I lived in Stuytown for a while, and I figured it was just kind of an area in Stuyvesant. But then I was like, oh, Stuytown is like a whole complex with a whole wild history. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess there's Stuytown, and then there was another one sort of adjacent to it, and they were both, I guess, built for World War II veterans back in the day. And we were in the apartments that were apparently for the soldiers, and then the nicer apartments was the other one, which is like bigger, which was for the lieutenant or something. I don't know. We're all making up what it would have been like living in this place back in the 40s. Yeah. But yeah, essentially that's why they were built and designed. And then now it's a combination of still some very old veterans living there. You can see them kind of roaming around, but then a lot of NYU students too. And then younger families. So
Cool.
Yeah, a broad spectrum of people, but good neighborhood. Like one of the only areas, at least, we could read a book outside and not worry about people, from the streets coming in, I suppose, because it's got security all around as well. They're very intentional about making about the residents.
Yeah, nice.
So,
I grew up Upper West
Yeah.
Side, 77th and West End. Um,
Oh, cool.
yeah, yeah. And I grew up there like probably pre-gentrification. Like it was always a nice neighborhood, but it wasn't fancy. But now it's a lot fancier. I don't think we can afford to live there now.
Right.
And
Mm.
you're
Yeah, they
Providence
got
now,
some
right?
nice. I am.
Cool. So, in addition to the work I do with Crusaders, I also trained with Brene Brown. I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown. Um, okay, I see by your face you're familiar. So, I trained with her to facilitate what's called her Dare to Lead curriculum, which is her work as it applies in the organizational context. And that's a 3-day program. I'm actually in the midst of running one of those right now. Today is day 2. So, I'm recording this and then I'm heading off to facilitate a day of Dare to Lead training. And the thing that's wild to me about that program, what I noticed, is that inevitably, halfway through day 2, somebody will say something like, look, I mean, you can empathize all you want, but at some point you have to get the job done, right?
Hmm.
And my answer is always, you can empathize and you can get the job done. Like these things are not mutually exclusive. But so many people carry a myth that as soon as we start talking about care and empathy and connection and some of the stuff I've heard you talk about, like, you know, coaching the whole human, things like that, that a lot of people carry a myth that that means we're going to let people get away with bad behavior. We're not going to, our standards aren't going to be as high. We're not going to be as ambitious. Okay. This is the premise of the podcast. This is what I want to talk about. Go.
I love that topic. First of all, Brene Brown, huge fan. I actually am always on the lookout for her tours because I would love, love, love to hear her in person. But, you know, I'm really grateful for you to bring that up because I sometimes feel radical in my coaching approach for that very reason is, and it's a little bit of me, right? So I'm in a space, I understand compared to a lot of coaches I've coached with, I'm like younger, right? Younger and newer in this space. And I sometimes joke around how sure your experience in terms of long term, but in terms of my approach, I feel like I learn a lot about the athletes a lot quicker, you know. So, and I get told a lot, not a lot, but I've had some people say like, "Oh, she's in her feelings a lot," or a little emotional. But and it used to bother me a lot, and then I would probably hide a little bit and try and bring it back to the X's and O's, but it just didn't feel authentic to me because I think when we talk about sure we'll use empathy, but I like to use compassion more because compassion allows a yes and it's like I hear what you're seeing through, I see what you're going through, and you know I'm here to support. Like even using the word help versus support, like support is just like try to meet you where you are and how do we move forward together, right? Versus almost saying there's lack in the space and not just acknowledging that where you are is actually perfect and here are some things that we can do to create what it is that you actually want, right? So yes, I don't believe it drops the standard. I think it even enhances the standard because when you come from a place of meeting people where they are, people just want to feel valued, especially in the Ivy Leagues or in rugby in general. It tends to be that type A personality is the culture in the US at least, because you had to have gone to college to even play rugby. So when I first got here and I recognized, first of all, I'm surrounded by brilliant women. They're doctors, they're lawyers. Like I wouldn't tell on the rugby field because they're all covered in mud. But when you get to know them and you're like, wait, you studied what? And you know, and you're just, I'm just so impressed. So for me, I'm like, well, hang on. In that case, you're brilliant, you know what to do. So it's just how do we, you know, how do I support you with the pictures so that you're making those decisions and you can carry on that confidence on the field. Sorry, I seem to be rambling right now, but
It's
I'm
so
just
great. It's so great. I love it. I love it so much. You know, we're going to get into so much of what you've just talked about. I am curious about your kind of earlier influences. So, obviously, born in California, spent some time in Samoa, came here to Aotearoa, New Zealand. Where did you get? I've heard you talk about from an early age this appreciation of being in service. Can you talk to me about where did that come from? Like, who'd you get that from?
oh, so you know, I love this in service part too because I was kind of gaslit a little bit growing up that people would say it was me trying to look good or trying to be teacher's pet or, but now as I get older and I recognize, no, I think from a young age, I've always wanted to just support. Like I've always felt like, um, yeah, in service of others because it brought me joy to see someone achieve something that they wanted or recognize that they're perfect as they are, you know? I think there was a little bit of me that was also uncomfortable too when people were just sad. There's definitely a lot of me avoiding, right? Like I think growing up, sometimes there was definitely some hardship where if someone was sad, I think my body was like, oh no, sadness equals something's gonna happen. So I was quick to be like, how do we shift from being sad to bring joy? Because I knew that if we were in joy, it would create other things. So I think I knew at a young age that being sad, being angry, or anything that was kind of what we would say low vibrational emotions now didn't always lead to something that was comforting, right? So
Can I dig in
for a
on something
while,
there?
yes, yes,
So I just what I heard you say is you had this appreciation that if we were in joy, that potentially more things could come from that. And then I heard you talk about being sad, and I heard you say there was a piece of it that was avoiding being sad. Has that relationship with sadness transformed for you at all? That kind of like, ooh, don't feel sad. That's a bad thing to feel. Has that transformed?
yes, yes. And I think that's where the minute compassion landed for me, it's like, no, all of this is perfect and fine. Being sad is fine, being joyous, and it's all temporary too, right? So it's on us, like just allowing people to just exist. And if I'm true to what my role is in that context, whatever that context may be, I'm always going to be in service. So what I find is, yeah, I think now as a coach, not being attached to what behavior looks like as well. I work with a lot of coaches that are like, I'm not going to take that player. I was like, why? They didn't say anything. So I think they have an attitude. And I'm like, well, no, like, why don't we dig in a little deeper? And if they say they're sad, that's still not a reason, like, let's dig deeper to, because it could be something that's, yeah, not relevant in this space. But I appreciate that question. It's definitely an area that I've had to grow in. I think I've probably grown up with maybe four emotions on my spectrum. And as I've grown, it's recognizing there's like 20 of them and we're ebbing and flowing through all of them at some point. And it's just allowing everyone and their spectrum to just exist. And how do we hold space when we all take turns on these various areas? Is this making
Amazing.
sense?
It's making it makes total sense to me. I hope it's making sense to the folks listening. There are a couple of things that I want to pick up on there of what you just said. The first is, as you know, we run this Crusaders Leadership Program. That program has 4 modules. One of the modules is coach as servant leader. And so when I hear you talk, I feel like, we have so much alignment in terms of the approach that we take and the approach that we advocate for, and the approach that we see as creating the opportunity to get the best out of the people who we're there to serve, which is our players. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't know if you know, but the tagline, when you talk about compassion, the tagline for this podcast is that it's a podcast on the intersection of wild ambition and fierce compassion. And that's the entire premise is, how can we see that people are whole and perfect exactly as they are in this moment, and that there's never anything wrong with them. And our job is to go meet people where they are and go, what journey are we going to go on together? Like, that's what we've got. And how can we do that in a way that is not, well, I don't care in any way if I win, but also that doesn't attach our self-identity to the win or the loss. And this is the thing I find really interesting, because this is where people struggle, and the kind of pointy end that I like to get to in this podcast is, you've obviously, you've taken the USA Women's Eagles to a 4th place finish, first in almost 20 years, or in 20 years. You've won national championship. You've done so many extraordinary things. So obviously you have this hunger to achieve. How do you
Mm.
marry that with the idea that we don't need to achieve anything in order to be whole and perfect and worthy?
Wow, good question. I find myself, and I'm better at it now as a coach, but I do find my, I think staying in gratitude supports me. Um, just because there's no words to describe the connection you feel with your team when you come up from a place mm, of being in service moment to moment, right? So, you know, when I was asked to captain the Eagles, sorry, I can't explain it. So maybe if I tell you this story, you can support me in finding the words.
Yeah.
When I was asked by my USA coach to captain the Eagles, we were in the parking lot, and I just cried. I cried because I wasn't sure I was good enough in the US athletes' eyes to lead them. Because coming from New Zealand, being Samoan, I think what we valued in New Zealand Samoa in the arena wasn't so valued here. A lot of it is humility, a lot of it is team before me. And a part of me was I was compassionate for the US athletes because I was like, I don't blame them because look at all the sports and the way they've been coached through high school, so it makes sense if that's how they were. But I cried because I was, first of all, grateful that my coach saw me as that person. But then I knew the team well enough. I wasn't sure that I was the right person for the job because they valued, the big numbers in the gym or the big fitness numbers. And I was never on either of those. But when I spoke to a couple of my mates and they said, you are the best person because what we're actually missing is connection, that's when I knew in my heart that every question I asked before that, where there were moments where I was like, I'm going to ask this question and it could put my jersey at jeopardy, but in my heart, it's what supports the majority. And I didn't mind losing my spot for that. And I think because I trust my integrity and my commitment to the team, and when a coach felt that from me, I rarely ever got pushback. In fact, more often I would get alignment, and it would even make me even more of a reason for them to put me in a leadership role. So uh,
Is there a piece there that it's purpose and intention? Like one of the things I'm hearing is the reason that I'm pushing back, the reason I'm questioning is because of my commitment to the jersey and my commitment to the team. And so if someone's pushing back because they're disconnected, if someone's pushing back because they're not interested in the outcome, or they're pushing back because they're trying to advance their own interests, individual interests, then we might react one way. But when you're showing up going, actually, this might cost me my own jersey, but I have to say something because, back to that, I'm here to be in service piece of it. This is, if I don't speak up right now, I'm not actually fulfilling my purpose here. Is there something in it, in that?
yes, yes, absolutely. I think uh, the more I listened to my heart, because it didn't sit right. It didn't sit right that I knew this information and there was something, and I was in a. It's also contextual. Out of the whole group, I'm one of the oldest players, so I was more mature too. So for me, it's almost doing a disservice to myself if I felt a certain way and I had the words and I chose to not use them.
Hmm. One of the things we know, uh, there are a few things that come from the Brene Brown research that I think is relevant to you and to your story. One of them is that you mentioned earlier that your emotional repertoire growing up was around 4 different emotions. You might be gratified to know that you were doing pretty well, because on average, our emotional vocabulary is limited to 3 emotions. I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm happy. I'm mad, I'm glad, I'm pissed off. I'm sad, I'm glad, I'm pissed off. And so, 4, you're doing pretty well right off the bat. But the other thing that we know is that courage is contagious. And so this idea that you're going, actually, if I don't speak up, who will? And also me speaking up, what you're doing when you're speaking up is you're normalizing that this is a place where people speak up. And I've asked literally thousands of people, um, who wants more courage in their own lives and in their leaders? And 100%, obviously, yes. And then I ask thousands of people, what's your lived experience? And I give this list of like all the indicators of a lack of courage. Like we don't have hard conversations and our values are fluffy words on the wall and we have cultures of shame and blame and, this whole list. And everyone's like, yep, that's my lived experience. And I have this real curiosity of like, we all say we want more courage, but our lived experience is a lack of courage. And I think the main reason is A, we don't treat it as a muscle that can be developed. And B, we don't see it modeled. And when people see you speaking up and modeling it in that way, what you're doing is you're normalizing what cultures of courage look like.
Yeah, you're bringing back to something I live by as well, and it's being responsible for what's happening in the room and being the source. So for me, it's if something's missing in the room, I get to be it, right? If something that, or at least like courage. So I'm aware that if I want my players to go be courageous, I get to model that. And I love that you're saying that because that's the feedback I often get from a lot of people that I work with is we'll be like me and the coaches. I was with the pro team in Colorado, for example, and we would always debrief after. And one of my first few sessions, the assistant coaches were saying to me, I've never heard them ask this many questions, you know? And to me, that was a note going, okay, great. Like we're on that. Cause that's what we want, we want a space where, yeah, people feel like it's okay to ask, to be curious, to speak up. And like you said, for something like me, like someone like me being Samoan, big stature, using my voice, I think I was a little bit uh, hesitant because I always made up that if I speak up, it would take away space. Because I think culturally, too, being Samoan, you're always feeling like you're bigger than everyone, and society would have you go, oh, you guys. So there was definitely a moment in my life where I had to grow from thinking I had to play small for others to shine. I would often not answer the question because I'm the one who knows all the questions. But it didn't feel in integrity with who I am. And once I got away from looking good or trying to impress and just like be authentic and allow myself to be authentic, because it was also a muscle that was new to me. And until I'm in safe spaces where I can practice that, where else can I practice? Because even when you're being authentic, you can still walk away and reflect and go, okay, I said what my heart was feeling, but maybe the wording, how do we do it in a way that it can be heard? Not just walk away going, I said what I wanted to say, great. But it's like, did it create what it was that you wanted to create, with whoever was in the room? So that's the second layer.
Was that process of going from, I don't want to take up space to actually, I want to express myself authentically and be mindful of how I do that. Was that just an organic process that evolved over time? Or did you have people in your life who kind of were teachers for you, who supported you on that journey?
A bit of both. I definitely had a lot of teachers. So, I think also what I should have said, or when I realized the leadership, my uncle, my mom's sister's a church minister, both my grandparents were in education, So I think being in service was definitely something that was around me growing up. But that particular process, I think it was I had some breakthroughs over some leadership training I actually did recently, and there's actually one that's going to be happening at Brown University that I feel like it's a Brene Brown, probably a youth type of vibe that I'm really, really keen to get in on. But it was like some transformational work, where I had to be really intentional about taking this work, being honest about the blockages I have. Because there was, for ages, I felt like I'm a good person, but there was always something that was stopping me from like taking that leap, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So yeah, I signed up for a couple of these training sessions in New York City. And basically you go through identifying kind of what your automatic is, why you respond to certain things a certain way, and recognizing that, how do you overcome it? So, and then integrating it, and I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of good mentors, and my best friends, like my tight circle, don't let me get away with anything. So if you can pick up, I'm very fortunate that I have in every realm of my life, people are always honest with me. They root for me, whatever I want. So I think that allows them to go, hey, look, I see where you want to go. You know, careful when, look out for these things. I have that.
Amazing. Can I say, like, from in my view, the best friends you can have are the ones who love you and are willing to call you on your shit. And but a lot of people don't want that, right? Like it's pretty normal for people to go, actually, no, I don't want you to call my on my shit at all. I want you to tell me I'm right. I want you to tell me he sucks and she sucks and just agree with me about how all these other people are terrible. And I feel like the mark of someone who is really committed to their own growth is taking delight in having people in their lives who are going to call us out and call us in.
Yeah. And I like, you know, I definitely, my friends, so when I want that whole, I just want to be right for a moment, I ask for it. I go, look, I get that I'm being ridiculous. Just let me have it. Put a timer on it if you need to, and then I want to hear what it is that you're saying. Because you're right. Like, yeah. But I've definitely asked my friend to go, look, I'm not really after any advice right now. I just want a place to just vent. And sometimes as it leaves my body, that allows me to shift as well. I also think there's a lot of us, especially women in coaching, we tend to gaslight ourselves a little bit or don't truly allow our bodies to process things because we got to move on to the next thing, you know. But it's like, yeah, finding a good tool or having a process that works for you in a competitive environment, I think is always healthy, versus always internalizing, walking away, thinking you'll get through it eventually. And then it comes out in ways that, are less than ideal.
It's so interesting that you raised this thing about having these emotions move through our bodies. 'Cause one of the things that I talk about in my work is the myth that we carry that our emotions aren't physical, when, of course, they're entirely physical. That the only way we know we're having an emotion is that we have a physical experience of it, that our emotions are physical experience plus story. And the premise that I would have, and I'm curious about this premise in your work, because, of course, you're working with people whose job is the way that they move their physical bodies every day. The premise that I would
Yes.
have is when we become more effective at navigating the physicality of our emotions, being able to work through them, being able to process them, not holding on to them physically, that frees us to express ourselves more fully on the pitch, on the playing field, in our sporting endeavors. I'm curious about your experience with that and whether you've noticed a connection between those two.
Absolutely. I uh in fact, it's all about feeling your body and then being at choice, not ignoring your body. So it's like understanding I'm feeling something right now and I'm going to choose to complete this task without, because we can pin it, right? Um, what's interesting about what you're saying is with the Brown University students, we have a reputation of turning walk-ons, people that we try out on campus, into all-star rugby, which is, I think, incredible. And I find myself going, all right, so, and obviously the physicality of the game is something that they have to practice. But before they get to that point, I do remember saying to them, so you've you've achieved everything you've had using your brain. And now I'm asking you to use your body, which I get is a new muscle to some of y'all. And so I feel you. I think it's the exact same thing. I think in rugby, especially, you're overwhelmed all the time, and it's about finding people that can still contextualize while under overwhelm, right? There's so many circumstances. There's the ball you got to look out for. There's defense. It's just such a dynamic sport that it's about training our athletes to be present under that pressure. I'm not saying it's not pressure, but acknowledging that, yeah, you're under pressure. This is why we do this sport. And how can I still be present, be empowered in my decision making, support, right? Like just the main pillars. And then the scoreboard will be the scoreboard, So it's like using our experience to sometimes highlight to these overachieving humans who aren't used to failing as well. Like, even that whole conversation about how do we build a culture where progress over perfectionism, which takes them, getting their ego out of the way, not identifying themselves as what they do, but allowing themselves to be fluid in the process. uh yeah, and feeling it in their body, which some of them, you can tell, some of their first contact practices, I'm like, all right, this is someone who's not even been in a wrestling match before, or even like learning how to grapple, and things that we take for granted because we just grew up with that, especially when you come from big families. So yeah, everything you're saying. And I think I'd love to talk about people who are used to using their minds, that it delays their physical reaction sometimes, right?
Like folks who are more in our, like when we're more in our minds, when we're more about like reading and on the computer and whatever, and not having that kind of experience of like what it means to express ourselves through our bodies. Like I grew up in
Yeah.
this very intellectual environment, and my mother was always like, you need to move your body. Like she wasn't much for it. She wasn't like much of an athlete, but she understood that like you need to understand how to move your body in space. And so she made us do gymnastics, and like I did like dance and stuff when I was a kid, just because she was like, you have to, that it's such a critical part of the human experience. And you
Yeah.
can't really kind of fully express yourself or engage with this life if you don't have both.
Yeah, and the obviously with the science of everything that's released when you move your body too, scientifically it makes you feel better and then get clarity. So
I'm curious about the taking walk-ins and turning them into all-stars. Is there something you think you do differently, you being the Brown coaching staff, do differently that makes your crew more likely to get that kind of result?
you know, I'm again, so this is my first season with them. So I'm coming in with a reputation, I'm getting to ride that reputation. But knowing Coach Roz, Bridget, and Kittery, I really think it's a portion of, yes, the coaching. They're brilliant coaches. But I also think it's the type of athletes that you're attracting at Brown, a player that's come in on their own academically to generate the capacity to now become a D1 athlete. Like, I think that takes a certain level of commitment, right? And a certain mindset. So it's the mindset, the commitment, plus the good coaching is a good formula. Like, because again, rugby, I feel, is actually quite a simple game. It can get complex by complex coaching. But yeah, I don't think there's anything different, but I do love that Brown was able to highlight that, because again, compared to Dartmouth and Harvard, who are currently like the dominant rugby teams, they haven't had as much struggles recruiting, just because they've had more spots, just a bit of background there. So Brown have been forced to recruit on campus. So because of that, it's allowed them to explore. And even I embrace the challenge as a coach, you know, to teach a full adult like how to play rugby.
I love it. I love it. I want to stick with your current season because you are new to the team, and I
Yeah.
had a look at how the season's going, and
Yeah.
yeah, and so let's say I got it here. So first four games, let's say, didn't turn out maybe as hoped. Fourth game, 60-0 loss, and then a bye week, I guess, and then fifth game, you win 55-14. Sixth game, you win 76-7. What happened in the bye week? Like what's
Right.
going on? How do you turn it around like that? It's amazing. I'm cheering for you.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, a combination of the schedule was pretty tough. So when I came on board, that was the first thing that the current coaches told me, is that, look, the first four games are going to be very tough, and then roster wise, we can put a minimum of 23 on the roster, and we were only able to field like 17, 18, just because we've got a bunch of injuries as well. So yeah, we think the first four games were obviously a lot of learning on the players, like the intensity, and a lot of players from last year getting a lot more game time than they're used to as well. We graduated 9 seniors. So I think the first four was us trying to find our identity as a team, right? And honestly, I'm so inspired by this group because those types of losses in this league with who they are, like the fact that they were just able to turn it around after that bye week is just a testament to, yeah, just like the mindset and the hunger that they have, you know. Now, if we had a full 23 and if we had an experience, you know, forward pack, I definitely think the results could have been different. But yeah, looking at the personnel we had and trying to move combos around, I think all of us, even the coaching staff, have finally figured out, you know, who can play where. But it just took us those 4 games to really, yeah, learn all of that.
How did you navigate um, the the mood on the team and when the
Yeah,
early season wasn't going so well?
me personally, lots of 101s. That's something that I've taken on as a coach. I used to not be confident on 101s for some reason because I was always unsure how it would go. I think as a coach, you know, and I was with clubs, so I'm working with full time people that are not really full time like a D1 athlete. So this is my first opportunity to spend as much time as I can with the athletes, and I chose to sit with them 15 minutes after each game. And during those minutes, I was able to just have them really look at the facts, you know, like past the emotions, past the scoreboard, look at their own performance. And once I can do that, I can actually highlight to them where we're winning, where the progress is being made, you know? So, like, highlighting to them where there's progress, because they're obviously not going to see it always. As much as we would love for athletes to self motivate, look at, you know, like, it's it's still like a sincere conversation where it's like, this was your goal, this is what you had, that's good, you know, get them to the next moment. I personally feel like that's that was my intention, was to keep the focus on growing.
I love this premise of we're going to look at the facts. Are you familiar with the Stockdale paradox?
No.
So the Stockdale paradox comes from Admiral Jim Stockdale, who was in the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. And in 1965, his plane was shot down over North Vietnam, and he was taken captive and held prisoner in the Hanoi Hilton, infamous prisoner of war camp, for 7.5 years. Underwent horrific torture, had to do horrific things in order to survive. And when he got out, he did an interview with Jim Collins, who wrote the books Good to Great and Built to Last. And Jim Collins asked him, what was it that allowed you to survive that ordeal? What was the difference between the folks who made it through and the folks who didn't? And kind of more to the point, the folks who didn't make it through, what did they have in common? And Stockdale said, oh, that's easy. The ones who didn't make it through, those were the optimists. They were the ones who said, we'll be home by Christmas. And Christmas would come and Christmas would go. And they'd say, we'll be home by Easter. And Easter would come and Easter would go. And they'd say, we'll be home by Thanksgiving, by November. And Thanksgiving would come and go. And he said, Christmas would roll around again and they would die of a broken heart. He said, the ones who made it through were the ones who never confused total faith that they would prevail in the end, which is something you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of their current reality, no matter how challenging they may be. So this became known as the Stockdale paradox. To my way of thinking, it's not a paradox in the slightest. The only way we can prevail is by being willing to confront the brutal facts of our current reality, or like I like to think of the facts of our current reality. This premise, though, of what I just heard you say, which is so important, that often we need to kind of wade through the emotional story layer to get to the facts, to go, actually, what happened? Oh, I screwed up. Okay, well, that's an emotional story. What actually happened? Oh, they passed to me and I dropped the ball. Okay, that's interesting. What happened when they passed you? Oh, well, I caught it with my hands down instead of my hands up. Okay, that's interesting. Now we're getting into facts that are not about the emotional story over top. And to what I'm hearing you say is once we get to those facts, then we can have a conversation about what we did well. Oh, but those 3 other times you caught with your hands up, even though that wasn't how you used to catch. That's fantastic. Then we can get into those conversations about what's working, what's not, where we need to improve. But when we're stuck in the, I screwed it up, I'm terrible, there's, I let everybody down, that is a really challenging place to learn from.
It's like you were in the room. That's exactly like, and I feel very validated in this approach. Again, this is something that I just felt like it was needed in the space. And now that you're taking me back, a lot of them too ended up walking away feeling like they can take ownership now. Because the game can be so gray as well. Like sometimes just hearing from, in this case, the coach, you can get alignment on this. These are the little twitches that we get to do. It's just a skill thing. It's not emotional. So how can we improve? And if I give them tangible steps, they walk away keen to know, okay, this is the next step that's going to bring me closer, right? And then they forget that, yeah, at the time, of course, it's like losing's not easy. And look at the areas that this is how we can, carry on and move forward. So, but the ownership was something that I'm very big on. Like, it's creating a space where the athletes know it's their game. They own it. We're there to guide. We're there to facilitate. But when they take ownership, they're no longer looking at the sideline anymore, and they can problem solve. They can feel confident to like make decisions. So that's something that's also very big for me.
Can I say, I hear that coming through. And I heard earlier in our conversation when you were talking about if something's missing in this space, I can provide it. You're using the term ownership. In my mind, that's accountability. It's basically this thing of going, actually, I am 100% accountable for my own self and only accountable for my own self. And so if I see a need here, then if it's up to me to go, is this a need that I can step in and address? And if not, it's not mine to own. And that clarity of like, what is mine to own and what isn't. What I just heard you bring that to is ownership by the players when the players are on the pitch. And I'm aware that rugby is quite a different game in that respect to some other games, in the sense that the coaches are not nearly as involved during the game. And so there's this kind of required level of ownership. Is that something that is a big mindset shift for folks coming into your program, where they're all of a sudden going, wait a second, you mean you're not just in my ear the whole time telling me exactly what to do next?
Huge. Such a shift. There's it's two things. They want us to tell them exactly what to do every second of the game, right? And then, yeah, when things aren't going well, they want us to give them the answers, right? And I'm saying they want this, but they're used to that. Is probably, So it's something that I address super early now. Like now that I've coached in the US for the last 8 years, like, because we love the multi-sport athletes, the basketballers, the soccer players, like the fact that they're in D1 learning those micro skills at a young age, like that tells me you're an athlete, like you're committed. So yeah, the first thing I do is like, look, we're not out, we're not in your ear, we're not going to do timeouts, we're not going to take you off if you foul. Like, you get to learn that, you get to be out there and back yourself. So it's even more so I need you to talk at practice. I usually bring that up when there's not a lot of communication at practice because, again, providing a space where they're seeing something but they're hesitant to speak. I'm very big on loud practices because it allows me to guide you if what you're saying, isn't going to get you the result that you're looking for. So...
Now, you obviously made history as the first female coach of a professional men's rugby team in America. Have you noticed much of a difference between the men and the women?
Yes.
How so?
There's a few. So yeah, the men, the men just want to go and fumble their way through and correct as they go along. The women are like, they want to know exactly what it is that we're doing, and it even supports them if we tell them the why. If we tell them the why, they're like, it's great because now whatever shows up, at least in the women's, whatever shows up, now they know why they're trying to do it, so they can kind of problem solve by giving them the why. The guys, don't really care so much about the why until afterwards. But yeah, I learned that they'll go run around and I have to call them in. Whereas the women, I'm like, what else do you need? And then they ask more questions before they can go away.
I love this. I
Um,
feel like men absorb, I mean, these are gross oversimplifications, right? But I feel like men like absorb the world through their physical experience of it. Like I just did a webinar with my dear friend and colleague, Melissa Clark Reynolds, who's a futurist. And she shared this study that was done a little while ago, where they would put people in a room and your choice, you're sitting in this room and you're hooked up to some thingy bobbers. And your choice is you either sit there by yourself with your own thoughts, or you can press a button and give yourself an electric shock. and and 25% of the women press the button, and like 85% of the men. And
mm,
Melissa, when she shared this, the way we were kind of talking about the sort of framing of it was that men would rather give themselves an electric shock than be bored or than sit alone with their own thoughts. And I was reflecting on it afterwards, and I was thinking, from a male perspective, I feel like men would be like, women would rather sit and do nothing than be curious, than wonder, what does this button do, right? And like, could I
mm.
take it if I press it? Like, how bad is it going to be? Like, there's a curiosity there of like the physical, what's it like to have this physical experience of the world that I think is more dominant. I believe is more dominant in men than in women.
I love that you just described it that way because I actually think I'm both. I actually think I refer to it as masculine and feminine energy. I like masculine to me is like hands on, do. The feminine one is a bit more intellectual. They're like just thinking macro picture, I suppose. Um, but that's probably why I could relate to both, coaching both. Like in the men's space, I allow them to have their childlike, I sometimes wish that was in the women's space because the women are like very serious. I have to almost orchestrate childlike plays for the women to actually just chill and have some fun. Not all, I'm generalizing again. But yeah, I think you're right. And that's probably another reason why my coaching has just grown the way it has because I didn't mind failing. I was very hands on. Like, yes, when I first started coaching and they asked me to lead, I'd be sweating like 2 hours before. I would overthink all my drills. Are the cones exactly where they're going to be? Am I going to go out? But at the same time, I would always be a yes. And I'd be nervous, but I'd just say yes just to go out and try it. And I definitely know a lot of my friends would, find every reason not to do something. And I'm the one going, just try it. So I definitely think yeah, I'm can be the guys and the girls at the same time.
I love
So,
it. You mentioned that when you came into Brown, you came in with a bit of a reputation. What was your reputation?
oh yeah, I guess an emotional coach, I think. Yeah, but a winning coach too. Yeah, I recognize that I did a lot of all-star work, so my challenge was 30 people meeting each other for the first time. We only have 3 sessions before we play. And I think that allowed me to sort of build different types of skills because, now we're looking for a quick win versus building up to something long term like I do at Brown. So I think my energy, I'm very enthusiastic. I am a bit of an optimist, but I also have high standards. Um, that I think allows me to be more relatable, and then I'm able to earn the room's trust a little quicker. And once I have the trust, then we're just playing from there. And luckily with All Stars, they're already athletes that are pretty good at what they do. So allowing them to show me who they really are allows me to then go, all right, great. So if that's who you really are, I think you should go here. And then it's beautiful most of the time. And they're having a good time. So, yeah, I think coming to Brown, a lot of people would say I'm probably chill or emotional, but I know I know what they mean, and I used to feel like, I'm not gonna get people aren't going to take me seriously because of it. But because I kept backing myself and kept coaching the way I want to coach, it's taking a turn. And now everyone's bringing the emotions into sport, and I'm like, this is perfect.
You're a pioneer. You're so ahead of your time.
Right.
I want to pick up on the first thing you said in response to that question, which was an emotional coach, but a winning one. And one of the things I've noticed on this podcast is that often people will talk about, well, we want to empathize, we want to have compassion, but there has to be a balance. And again, the premise when I hear that, the way it filters for me and lands is that the mental picture is there's a continuum, and we've got empathy over here, compassion over here, and winning or ambition or kind of aggression. And when I say aggression, I don't mean like violent aggression. I mean, like that kind of forward
Certain.
energy, aggression, over here. And my view is that actually it's more like a 2x2, like intersecting axes. Like we've got compassion and lack of, sorry, Andy, I don't know if I screwed that. All right. So we've got like a horizontal axis that is like compassion and lack of compassion. And then we've got ambition and lack of ambition. And when we're talking about the kind of space you're playing in, where you're playing is like way up here, like you're like max compassion, and we want to achieve everything that's possible for us to achieve, not because that's going to define our worth as human beings, but because that's why we're here, is to play and express ourselves and push ourselves and test ourselves and experience the potential that is this life.
Yes, I feel very seen right now. And thank you for even the image of that is very confirming and very validating for me, because I'm not one, like, I just sit quietly. I know how people react, players are, when I'm in the space versus when I'm not in the space, you know. And for a while, I was even thinking it's not sustainable because I was like, this is even the way I coach is literally who I am. It's like painting, every practice is a canvas, and that's everything I am if I'm present and grounded. But I think they've got to, if we're focusing on every athlete showing up their best version, I'm also not attached to what that looks like. So I think that's where the standard is just a byproduct of confident people who we know have been screened that they have the capabilities. So there's that part too, right? They've already been screened, they have the capabilities, they're now in front of us. It's a high performance camp. So I just get to have them show up and give me their absolute best. And then if they're all like from individual sports, the biggest challenge is how do we have them find their best as a team, right? So how do I have players who are usually the ballers hold space and go, well, we need you to be more of an assist here, not the shooter, right? We need you to be more of a tipper here, not the carrier. And I think that's the piece where the coaching comes in, because we want them to be open to knowing what they're good at, but also knowing what the space needs and how what they're going to do right now is going to get in alignment and still carry the ball forward. Right.
I love this. Rugby is such a team sport. I mean, every team sport is a team sport. That's tautological, but rugby in particular is, if the group is not working, there's a thing I heard about, which is it's like weak ties or weak ties, maybe something like that. Weak ties sports versus strong ties sports, or something like that, where it's like in one of them, your star player has an outsized influence. Basketball, your star player has an outsized influence on the outcome, and in other players, in the other kind, your weakest player, your whole team is required for the outcome. And rugby is one where, in my observation, you're way, infinitely, you've forgotten more about rugby than I will ever know. But in my observation, it's such a team sport, and that thing of going, actually, part of my job is not to teach you how to run or to have footwork or to fend. It is to teach you how to be part of this team and to invite the connection, which is the only thing you can, it's the thing you can only get here and now from me, because this group of people is unique to this moment.
Yes. So we say that all the time in rugby too. Like, hardly ever do these scenarios repeat themselves, who you're with, conditions. So, and I think what you're speaking into is the flow that rugby allows you to get to when everyone's performing at that level. Some of my best plays, I don't even remember them really that consciously in the because I just surrendered to the flow of the game, right? It's like trusting your body and your instinct means that you're not always kind of to the T recognizing exactly what's happening. And I think that's the flow that everyone can achieve once they surrender to the team. In this case, we're using the team, but it's definitely like an energy bigger than us. Um, yeah, team versus I so moving to New York, I would always ask people who was your favorite rugby player. Hardly anyone said the All Blacks or the Black Ferns. It was always some French player, some South African, and I would be like, "That's interesting," because they're the world champs. And it highlighted again to me that it's because as a team, between those two whistles, they're the most connected. And the team that's the most connected, I should say, would always come out on top. And I always say rugby rewards like the team, not the individual. I used to always say that the haka was like a huge plus for them because they used to build that togetherness, that they get to create that energy before they take the field. Like, it's better than any pre-workout. Like, when you're in unison with other human beings, like vocally, with your actions, with your energy, like there is nothing like that. And for me, I just hope everyone gets to experience that in their lifetime. Not, it doesn't have to happen in rugby, but I know in rugby the chances are higher. So that's my goal, is to have everyone feel that. It's almost nirvana, like the feel of like feeling so connected to other people. And I think that the only thing that would cost you to feel that is your ego. Like, if we can get ourselves to a place where we're coming from the perspective of the team, like that's our come from, there's no better feeling. There really isn't.
Karameli, I've been loving this conversation so much. We're almost out of time, but just before we sign off, would you be willing to share with me your experience of facing the haka, being on the other side?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I was in tears. And I was only staring at the women that I knew from Ponsonby Rugby because that was my last club before I moved. And I was staring at them. I was in tears because that was my opportunity to call on my ancestors, you know. And even though I was with the USA team and they might not understand, what it was about, I wanted to make sure they could feel it through me, that this is our opportunity to be grounded, to trust that we are exactly where we need to be. This battle is designed for us, and yeah, it was special and something I'll never forget. And it was a real honor to, yeah, face that with this USA group that I was with.
Did you? I read a little bit about it, and I saw that you invited the USA team to respond in a certain way.
Yes.
What happened?
Yeah, so the night before, 2 nights before the game, we had Richie Walker was on staff too. He's Maori, and I said, Richie, I think we get to like know how to respond to the haka. I think we get to come up with a plan, you know. So I asked them to perform the haka for us in the parking lot because I knew that it would echo. And then I just wanted to see what our authentic, reaction was. So we had the team line up. He performed the haka. Everyone's like heart was pounding, right? And then that was the moment where I was like, that feeling, because I needed it in the moment. That's you. You get to carry that too. That's going to be our strength, you know? So tomorrow, what we're going to do is that feeling you have right now where you want to fight, you want to ready to go into battle, like that's what it's going to take for us to hang with this team, you know? And then we also knew by law, we weren't allowed to advance past the 10. So we planned that we would be back 15 and I would cue when we would go up the 5. because I also, a part of me was like, I want to respect this haka. That's one, like, that to me is like the best way to go. We see your invitation and we accept it wholeheartedly, you know? So by us walking up was just, Charmaine and them told me afterwards, because I saw their pukanas got bigger, their eyes got bigger. And when we hung out afterwards, they're like, when you guys started walking up, we were like, oh yeah, and they started going hard with their, and we were, you know, at that point we were like, look, yeah, like, I wanted us to also ride that with you, you know. And then the last thing was, we had our jackets on, so I asked that we just wear it so that after the haka we embrace it, we just shake it off, and then now it's back to us. So some insight that I thought we would take advantage and see how we could, you know, have it work for our team as well, because it's such a powerful, powerful tool.
I love it. I love that you had the insight and, again, the courage and the authenticity to go, yes, this is a thing that's going to happen, but we're responsible for our own reaction to it. We're accountable for our own reaction to it. We don't, it's not it's actually a disrespect to them and to ourselves for us to go, oh, well, I guess we just have to sit here and, you know, take it. And the real respect is to go, yep, we hear you. We're going to show up fully to this battle just as you are. We're going to be worthy opponents to you. We know you're going to be worthy opponents to us. Let's go. Let's play together.
Oh, yes. The fact that you can articulate it like that is just amazing. Thank you. That's exactly how, yeah, that's exactly how I was hoping it would land. So appreciate that.
Amazing. Karameli, we are out of time. It's been such an honor to chat with you. Such a delight. I've enjoyed our conversation so much. I'm in tears. You can see, like, it's so beautiful. The work that you're doing is so important. And I know, you know, you said you've been kind of early in the piece in terms of showing up as this, you know, emotionally led coach and leader. And it's such a delight to see that that is becoming more and more the norm. And I just am so in awe and admiration of you and in encouragement of you to keep going, because the world needs your voice and is lucky to have your voice.
Thank you so much for saying all of that. That means a lot. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for listening. Karameli is such an uplifting human. I am not at all surprised that she is an outstanding coach. I especially appreciate the way she embraces the totality of the human experience. Like, she's performed at such a high level, and I have no doubt that she will continue to perform as a coach. And at the same time, it doesn't define who she is as a human being. The idea that her worth, that everyone's worth, has nothing to do with her performance or lack of performance. What a gift. What an absolute gift. Thank you again for tuning in. Please do let me know your feedback. You can reach me on hello@kylacolbin.com. And of course, thank you for liking, subscribing, following. I am always grateful for your offerings to the algorithm gods. Thank you again, and see you next week. Hunger and Heart is brought to you by the Crusaders Leadership Programme. Whether you're coaching under fives or a professional team, we all want the same thing: to build a culture of trust, to get the best out of your people, and to grow players into leaders. The Crusaders Leadership Program lets you get up close and personal with some of the greatest rugby legends of all time. People like Sir Wayne Smith, Sam Whitelock, Kieran Reid. You'll connect with a global group of ambitious, caring coaches from a range of codes and backgrounds. And most importantly, you'll gain skills and techniques to drive impact and outcomes for your team. The Crusaders Leadership Program is a 2-week, high-intensity virtual experience. It is delivered exclusively online, accessible from anywhere. Hunger and Heart listeners get 10% off the full price of the program. Use the code HUNGER at checkout. You can find out more about the Crusaders Leadership Program at crusadersleadership.com. That's crusadersleadership.com. Hunger and Heart is created by BOMA and the entire BOMA team, including Tito Bernal, Ray Jangle, Hannah Hudson, Johanna Coxon, Sunil Unka, and me, Kyla Colbin. Thanks for listening.